It is Saturn, Uranus, Saturday, Wamaspirigafatreme El Egbe, and it is so-called August 15th of Sirius, 2026. This is the letter to be read before every meeting, according to my prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Read it every morning, Noble Drew Ali. Moorish American invocation. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and day through his holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Amen. Ra. To be proclaimed in every meeting. I'm glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claim it was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to try to disqualify me so they themselves can take charge of the situation. I've notified these things to you long in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that contribute to the movement in uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I'm calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance as badly as I do at present, that I may shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being the head. It has been proven by my work in which I have performed in the last few months, because I was at the governor's inauguration to represent the Moorish divine and national movement, and I will be at the inauguration of President Hoover for the same cause. Caveat emptor. Moors are men, upright, independent, and fearless, who care for their loved ones and follow the prophet to a destiny which is not uncertain nor unknown. They are fortified by the unpregnable doctrine built upon love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. It is therefore folly at its greatest height for smelly culprits and their insidious plans to invade such realm. They try and try, but their own bad plannings bring down wrath upon their heads, like the sword old Damocles had. Intrigue and scurrilous cunnings find a difficult path to travel within the ranks of the Moors. So this is so because the Moorish movement has been well planned by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, whose latent powers are abundant, unknown, and may be called into action as a matter of defense at any time. Prophet Noble Drew Ali knows the people within his ranks who are interested. They are the vanguard of the movement as the Moorish hordes increase here in America. All Moors are active, not passive. All members' interests can only be in one direction, and having traveled over the world years before, the Prophet knows where every member is along the road. A few feet below is another road where schemes work, where traitors grin and culprits bask in the sun. They think they are on the same road with true Moors, but the Moors are high above on a pinnacle where they might view the destructionists as they fall for the last time and their bones bleach in the sultry midday sun. Hungry scavengers fly high, catch scent, devour, and leave crying out, "Caveat emptor, cast out the dead carcass." The Moors high above see the plotters, purveyors, and the worst that exists hurl themselves downward by their own works as the hawks await. I hereby inform, Prophet warns all Muslims. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at work in their homes or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All Moors will and must obey the laws as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Drew Ali, and if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet therefore is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. End of the letter to be required to be read before every meeting. Now we start the meeting. I made it to the escheat operation called CSL. I greeted everybody. I went to the bathroom and sensed the presence of those who came around me in the bathroom. I dried the clothing I wore because I sweated on them. I sweated on my way there. On my way there, I mused Neptune Simone Treme to the 300 movie scenes, imagining me, Noble Drew Ali, and constitutional militaries denying unum sanctum, known and unknown unconstitutional jurisdiction over our estates. I used the bathroom and began finishing up the Appeal to the Womb 13 Stare Decisis records given to me by the Grand Sheikh Taj Tariq Bey. I got in line and talked to Christina, Nick, T, Lisbeth, and others as I was finishing up why I arrived there. I could sense the presence of those surrounding me. I finished and accumulated private commercial paper to interact with so-called Wi-Fi, accumulate so-called dish soap, so-called razors, so-called energy shots, so-called soda, and so-called snacks, etc. from Dollar Tree in Melrose Park, so-called. Then I walked to the so-called liquor store and used human trafficking bookkeeping notes to accumulate so-called alcohol, of which I allodially named Soul Elixir. In parentheses, P.S. On my way there and back, I was aware of the individuals in automobiles who followed me. End of parentheses. I drank some of the soul elixir as I walked and used my imagination maxims to deny unum sanctum / Rome / Spanish Inquisitions my estate using music, etc. I went to Dollar Tree on Manheim in so-called Hillside, Illinois, and used federal counterfeit bookkeeping notes to accumulate more escheated resources. I greeted Robert about his hair and cashier, Miss Mary. I noticed the pattern of, during certain astronomical happenings, the concentration of individuals in escheat operations making trades, misnomered as buying things because only gold and silver can pay debts. On my way out, I saw two Moabites. I think they were a couple. The darker complexion Moabites was more physically attractive than the other. They both went into that door in between Family Dollar escheat operation and Dollar Tree escheat operation. I walked to the final liquor store escheat operation and spoke to Philip, Sam, and the other Hindi individual. I asked them about Hindi, Asia over there, in parentheses. I asked him about Hindi geopolitics and language. The Hindi guy inquired about how I knew such things. I replied, it is my responsibility to study. I made it back to the housing escheat operations, misnomered as Tenant, Municipal Edition. Arranged the so-called escheated resources accumulated, showered, and P.S. I went to Aldi escheat operation on Manheim and used private commercial paper to accumulate escheated products of dead, lifeless, so-called pork chops to consume. I spoke to Jesse as I left Aldi escheat operation. I got out of the shower and mused on the 300 movie scenes I used to imagine maxims denying unum sanctum / Rome / doctrine of discovery, Monroe Doctrine, unknown and known jurisdiction over my Moroccan empire, part and parcel, divine and national Moorish movement estates. I used the Book of Eli movie scenes for the same. I used Set It Off movie scenes for the same. I used my own videos and music I made for the same. I called my mother and father. We shared a conversation. She brought up Harriet Tubman and I brought up the song I made using the slogan, quote, move or die, unquote, in so-called 2022. I didn't find the song to send it to her. I sent her something related to what we were talking about. Equals in 2016 to 2017, before the rise of Sirius, she spoke to me saying she desired for me to perform my music, Simone Treme, Neptune, in Chicago in front of the buildings with art on them. She was currently so-called enrolled in the school down there and was inspired by the art on the infrastructure. I set up an allodial trust of memory within when she said that, and then 7 to 8 so-called years later, I completed it. I sent her the videos, these videos, and they are as follows. They're on the YouTube page VGQ POW. The YouTube video is titled The Shadow Self, The Hidden Self, featuring Brother Panic. Uploaded January 23rd, 2023, where the so-called regular sun was in Aquarius, 9 degrees, 15 minutes. The so-called regular sun was in Aquarius, balanced out by Leo. The so-called Vedic sun was in Capricorn, Makara Rashi, at 9 degrees and 15 minutes, balanced out by Cancer. The so-called regular moon was in Aquarius, balanced out by Leo, whereas at 12:37 p.m. that day, it was going to go into Pisces, balanced out by Virgo. And the so-called Vedic moon was in Capricorn, Makara Rashi, balanced out by Cancer, and at 1:53 p.m. that day, it was going to go into Aquarius, Kambha Rashi, balanced out by Leo. The second video was titled The Shadow Self, The Hidden Self, Part 2, featuring Brother Panic. Uploaded January 24th, 2023. The so-called regular sun was in Aquarius, balanced out by Leo. The so-called Vedic sun was in Capricorn, Makara Rashi, balanced out by Cancer. The so-called regular moon was in Pisces, balanced out by Virgo. The so-called Vedic moon was in Aquarius, Kambha Rashi, balanced out by Leo. I sent both of those videos. My father didn't answer the phone. I assume he was at the occupation called Job. I then used Selena Cordoba L /Amor /Asir the Duke of Tears lecture to further muse Simone Treme Neptune on Imagination Maxims of Denying Rome Unum Sanctum /Doctrine of Discovery /Monroe Doctrine, Unknown and Known Jurisdiction over my Moroccan Empire, Part and Parcel, Divine and National Moorish Movement Estates. The lectures were as follows. The YouTube page is titled Asir the Duke of Tears. The YouTube video is titled The Gods, The Gate, and the Great Estate, Part 1, Asir the Duke of Tears. Uploaded January 23rd, 2026, where the sun, so-called regular sun, was in Aquarius at 4 degrees, balanced out by Leo. So-called Vedic sun was in Makara Rashi, Capricorn, balanced out by Cancer. The so-called Vedic moon was in Kumbha, Aquarius, balanced out by Leo, on its way to Pisces, Mina, balanced out by Virgo at 8:31 a.m. The so-called regular moon was in Pisces, balanced out by Virgo, 22% through 26%, waxing crescent. Aries, balanced out by Libra, on its way to Aries, balanced out by Libra by 8:25 a.m. The second video was on the YouTube page of Asir the Duke of Tears. The YouTube lecture is titled The God, The Gateway, The Great Oxygen War, Part 2, Asir the Duke of Tears. Uploaded January 30th, 2026. The so-called regular moon was nationalized in Cancer, balanced out by Capricorn. It was 93% through 97% illuminated at waxing gibbous. The so-called Vedic moon was in Gemini, Mithuna Rashi, balanced out by Sagittarius. The so-called regular sun was in Aquarius, balanced out by Leo, until February 18, 2026. And then the so-called Vedic sun was in Makara, Capricorn, balanced out by Cancer. Then the final video I listened to was the same YouTube page titled Asir the Duke of Tears. The title of the video was The Golden Gates, The Ancient Greats, and the Moorish Estates by Asir the Duke of Tears. It was uploaded February 6, 2026, where the so-called regular sun was in Aquarius, balanced out by Leo. The so-called Vedic sun was in Makara Rashi, Capricorn, balanced out by Cancer. The so-called regular moon was in Libra, balanced out by Aries. And the so-called Vedic moon was in Virgo, balanced out by Pisces. And Mercury would move from Aquarius, balanced out by Leo, going into Pisces, balanced out by Virgo later that day. I watched Lovecraft Country scenes with the same frequency of thought, restoration, and maintenance of my Moorish estates. I listened to the song titled on YouTube, DBOYMMXG Count, quote, Jeff Fort, Larry Hoover, unquote, in parentheses, audio. And then the YouTube video titled Mary J. Blige - No More Drama, in parentheses, official music video. Then the YouTube video titled Wardruna Birna, in parentheses, official music video. And then the YouTube video Norse Viking Music Alpha Dratin. And then the YouTube video titled Shawnee Bonnie X Murder B - Dump It, in parentheses, official video. Then the YouTube video K Flock - Is You Ready, in parentheses, shot by KLO Visions. Then the Game of Thrones scenes. Then the Maxwell video titled Maxwell - A Woman's Work. Then two Moabitist archetypes came to the Housing Escheat Probated Estates facility where I was currently located. I opened the door for them, greeted them, and proceeded to get dressed and express more of my creative hereditaments with athletic activity. I went to the so-called graveyard, so-called. I walked and danced up and down the so-called hillside roads and facility parking lot, so-called. I came back inside and got in the shower and hung up the clothing I use for my former athletic expression of my Moorish divine and national movement hereditaments. I watched scenes from the movie Enough with Jennifer Lopez, so-called, and Hunger Games and Captain America, cultivating my securing, protecting, and operating apparatus for my Moroccan empire, part and parcel, divine and national Moorish movement estates. Denying, known and unknown, unum sanctum / Monroe Doctrine / Doctrine of Discovery / Roman jurisdiction over my illustrious estates. I so-called, quote-unquote, fell asleep. My father later called about 8:08 p.m., so-called. We spoke about his music and my mom liking and relating to it. I made the dead, lifeless rest of the pork chops to consume. I reviewed the videos watched within the same frequency of thought as it concerns my estates. I also spoke to Auntie Joanne. I was aware of the large amounts of soul elixir I consumed, so I alerted my divine and national Moorish movement hereditaments to sustain my right mind, divine nature, and divine feminine. And that I will remain in honor, national and divine Moorish movement honor. They assured me I would be fine. I so-called slept and dreamed. This dream will remain unwrit, however competently applied. I got up around 6:30 through 7 a.m. Friday, and I received my many options of the arms of Shiva Parvati to choose from as it concerns the operation of my Moroccan empire, part and parcel, divine and national Moorish movement estates. I used F&G sugar and finesse 2 times as catalyst in cultivating my imagination maxims. I sensed the presence of everyone, place, person, and thing within my 10-mile radius, so-called. The red truck in the window is replaced with the white truck, like when Saturn went into Aries, balanced out by Libra, February 13th, 2026. I played the YouTube video from the YouTube page House of Reawakening Minds. The video was titled Grand Sheikh Taj Tariq Bey and Dr. G, drawing a line in the birthright citizenship sand. It was uploaded April 3rd, 2026. As I cleaned the kitchen, the living room, and took a shower, put on lotion, deodorant, so-called, and walked outside to see a Moabitess archetype eating food in an automobile. I also saw the municipal building full of cars and an Aries charter bus there also. I threw away the trash in the outside dumpster and observed the surroundings in this environment, so-called. I came back into the Eschat Housing Probate Estates, misnomered as tenant facility, and received the movie and reviewed the movie scenes reviewed the movie scenes as I imagined, denying unum sanctum doctrine of discovery, Monroe Doctrine, unknown and known jurisdiction over my Moroccan empire, part and parcel, divine and national Moorish movement estates. The Monroe Doctrine enforcers rang the bell buzzer to complete their Spanish Inquisition duty against my Moorish, divine and national movement Moroccan empire estates, part and parcel. I identified them, their duty, and de facto missionary work and said, quote, ring it a third time, and I'll answer, unquote. There was no third ring. Then I demonstrated my imagination expressions of my Moroccan empire, part and parcel, divine and national Moorish movement estate operations. I so-called, quote, slept after. I leave my so-called dreams unwrit, however competently distributed into my thought, speech, and action. I rise, observe my national and divine surroundings and inner workings. I play on the Tubi app, the movie titled with Jim Carrey, so-called Me, Myself, and Irene. I scroll, as Grand Sheikh Taj Tariq Bey say, the CIA operation apps called YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, etc. Then I put on a Seer the Duke of Tears lecture titled The White Blight of Terra's Plight, a Seer the Duke of Tears, uploaded August 14, 2026, when the so-called regular moon was in Virgo, balanced out by Pisces. The so-called Vedic moon was in Leo, Simha, Rashi, balanced out by Aquarius. The constellation of Nakshatras, Purva, Falanguni, until early morning that next day. And the so-called regular sun was in Leo, 21 degrees and 12 minutes, balanced out by Aquarius. And the so-called Vedic sun was in Cancer, Karka, balanced out by Capricorn. Vedic sign Surha Rashi, Western sign tropical zodiac, Leo for comparison, Ayanamsa shift. I consume rice, pineapples, apples, cookies, popcorn, soda, and water, so-called. I continue doing calisthenics on bringing into existence realities I prefer for myself. All things done in honor, according to the divine and national name and principles laid down by my prophet, Noble Drew Ali, for my protection and correctly applied Hermetic principles. I was alerted when the frequencies of demonic, vampiric, parasitical, colonial, unum sanctum, doctrine of discovery, Monroe Doctrine enforcers and spirits arrived to make unlawful physical / metaphysical claims of jurisdiction over my estates. I did everything necessary to estoppel / rebuttal adverse claims and reversion of my estate, denying them jurisdiction over my estate, physically and metaphysically. I listened to the House of Reawakening Minds YouTube page video titled Grand Sheikh Taj Tariq Bey and Dr. G, Discerning the Shift, Managing the Frequency of the Now, Part 1, which was uploaded July 18, 2025, so-called, and Part 2, which was uploaded August 1st, 2025, so-called. In the operations of my estate, I kept my focus maxims on doing this and much, 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 much more. Thinking and operating on many levels. Number 1, deny unum sanctum jurisdiction over my estates. Number 2, every tactic they attempt to drain my wealth, unveil it to the common people. Number 3, magnetize electoral realities I desire for myself within the laws laid down by my prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Number 4, establish, expand, maintain, and refine the divine and national Moorish movement well-being of my hereditaments. Number 5, always set up allodial aboriginal trusts for every breakthrough achieved, for the protection and flourishing of our divine and national Moorish movement estates. Number 6, never give in or submit to the de facto arms of unum sanctum / Monroe Doctrine operations against our divine and national Moorish movement estates. Number 7, send the common people allodial aboriginal trusts for their estates' protection against unum sanctum's Spanish inquisitions. I told myself to record the monthly so-called astronomical / astrological phenomenons in my so-called human experience from my beginning to now. At 9:34 a.m., that Friday Venus morning. Then at 2:38 a.m., this Uranus / Saturn Saturday, I recorded while on the toilet. Quote, I do not abandon my estate, and guard it divine and nationally. Unum sanctum is unconstitutional, and everything they try against my estate will burn them up and their operators and expose them to the common people. At 3:39 a.m., this Uranus / Saturn Saturday, I confessed my own and recorded it. I confessed, 1, restoration of our estates. 2, down with the vampire against our estates. 3, down with unum sanctum. 4, rise of the Moors. I then continue the 7 levels of my thought, speech, action, and more as I so-called slept. In general, I experience the 7 levels of my thought, speech, and action in my so-called dreams. I have competently distributed the so-called dream competently and accordingly in my thought, speech, and action. I so-called woke up between 8 through 9 a.m. something and began writ. End of meeting.